You do. Everybody's getting old. Busy for.
10 seconds.
Down past him.
And then some.
Recording in progress.
May 7th, 2025, City Council meeting for the city of Gearhart is called to order. At this time, I'm going to ask, are there any declarations of interest, conflict of interest? Declarations of interest.
None here.
Zero.
No.
No. All right. Approval of the minutes. The regular meeting of the city council for Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
Move to approve the regular meeting minutes of the city council Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. Second.
All those in, is any discussion? No? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, passes. Now I'll take a motion for the special meeting on April 11th, 2025, the city council.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay. Are there any corrections, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the work session, April 29th, 2025. Are there? I'll take a motion to accept it.
You have a motion to accept the minutes of the work session of the city council from Tuesday, April 29th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, are there any corrections, comments?
Nope.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did we get everyone's eye?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on, Planning Commission report. We have a letter from Garrett Phillips, our city planner. Does anyone have any questions over this or about this? Amend the text of the GZO flood hazard overlay zone. Has to do with FEMA's buy-off and amending our zoning code. No questions? All right. Moving on, mayor's report. I attended a public safety building meeting, and I also went to Coos Bay to attend the LOC's spring conference down there, and I went to a keynote speaker, and this guy talked about having gratitude and giving gratitude. So at this time, I'd like to thank City Administrator Chad Sweet, Councilor Dana Gould, and Councilor Preston Devereaux for all the work they've done on the public safety building and working with the Bosch Group and FFA. So that's all I'm going to report on. Councilor reports, we're going to start with Sharon.
Okay, I went to a small cities meeting in Seaside, and the presentation was given by a gal from Oregon Parks and Rec from the Heritage Division. And the presentation was basically about monies that she has to give out apparently for heritage situations. And those can include buildings that you might have, museums that you might have, which we don't. But we do have a Trails and Art Center. Possibly the Ridge Path maintenance, maybe a redo of the stables building. I mean, I don't know. I've been trying to reach her because she indicated that we could call her and talk to her and ask questions. So I'm still in the process of doing that. So I don't know, it'd be great if we could get some money along those lines. Anyway, second thing, went to a presentation also in Seaside of offshore wind energy put on by DLCD. They have been tasked and are in the process of looking at all the factors that could go into having offshore wind energy off of the Oregon coast. They're zeroing in on Coos Bay and farther south locations potentially. I think that at this point, and probably for the next 3 or 4 years, they're just going to be investigating this and nothing's really going to happen as far as starting the project. And I also attended the budget committee and meetings with Chad. That's it.
Okay, Dana?
Again, starting on a positive note, I want to give a shout out, first of all, to the fire department for managing their budget for their vehicle maintenance so well. And then second, I want to give a shout out to the police department for managing our contract with the sheriff's department so well. Both are, as far as I can tell from our budgeting numbers, are looking good. And I know that that's no easy feat when you only have 3 guys full-time working for you, so thank you. And then the last shout out I have is for the citizens who've reached out with words of encouragement on the public safety building issue. It makes me feel good to know that there's so many people in the community that support that effort. This last month, I spoke to a high school civics class. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot from them. I hope that they learned a little bit from me. I also attended the League of Oregon Cities, Small Cities meeting that Sharon talked about, and it was an interesting presentation. As I was talking with Peter earlier, we also brought up the subject of the Portland State University numbers and how it's affecting our budget. And there was some talk in the meeting about other cities having a little bit of impact on that, mostly on the east side of the state. They feel that money is being funneled towards the I-5 corridor. And LOC acknowledged that they are aware of complaints and that they may be interested in partnering with us if it's something that Peter is not able to, feels like he is not able to resolve and needs to take to another level or get some assistance with. Then went to the League of Oregon City Spring Conference meeting that the mayor went to. Excellent presentations. Found many cities share similar struggles to what we're having. I attended this session on navigating infrastructure funding options. And I want everybody to know I've received a number of emails about House Bill 3780, which some people are reading to interpret that the state is looking to give money away for projects just like ours. I'm not sure that that's exactly an accurate reading of that, but I am looking into it. And I do have an email into Cyrus, so I'd like to speak to him about it or with somebody in your group outside of this so that I can wrap my brain around it. Reviewed meeting notes from city meetings with Quash and FFA, spoke with citizens, confirmed about the city's water rights application to tree I received some tree ordinance complaints. Public safety building and commercial building signage concerns. And I am planning to attend the upcoming budget meeting, public meeting training, and the Platts Economic Development Awards. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Elena?
I also went to the small cities presentation, stayed for half of it and just on the Oregon Heritage programs. What spoke to me was that there are some grants for archiving of our records, which might be interesting to pursue at some point in time. I attended virtually a public contracting basics in service. If anybody wants the slides, I have them. And did some follow-up with Justine on what we have in place here, which appears to be a very good metric for some of the do's and don'ts for public contracting. I attended the Clatsop County Housing Task Force. We're continuing to look at the program for turning short-term rentals into long-term rentals. We'll have another presentation on that next month. And then there was just discussion about middle-income housing. Warrenton has a very big project in the works to the tune of about 400, about 250 homes and somewhat less, 120 to 150, more like an apartment structure, all in one development up on Ridge Road over there. Some of the takeaways for middle income housing, to do anything, you really need to find multiple funding sources. And just a reminder, we do have one lot available from the county that could potentially be developed into middle income housing. I too have a shout out to Christy for getting out the public safety building information to us so timely and complete. That was really good to be able to just pull that up on our computers and see all that. Also, one of my neighbors commented to me on Officer Jeremiah and his performance on a call out several weeks ago. An event happened at her home. She could not be more thankful for his service. I've also worked on pulling out the metrics that the council did several years ago. These are performance metrics on council goals. And I did an update, which is the last two columns. We have not reviewed this, so I won't get into detail. We did at our meeting on Tuesday, but since then I've filled in the blanks. And as you can see, there's a lot of green and some yellow. Those are things that are completed or not quite done. And the red, of course, which there is a little, are projects that we haven't gotten off the ground yet. Or yeah. That's it. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Preston?
Well, I attended the budget committee meeting, as everyone else. So that's it.
All right, thanks a lot. Okay, moving on. Josh Gregory, Chief of Police.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the shout out. We're very thankful to have collaboration with the Sheriff's Office. And we appreciate your efforts. Just a few things. March stats are completed. Sorry about the delay. I'll go through here. You'll hear why I've been kind of busy lately. April stats are almost done. Most of them are completed. They should be done by the end of the week. We'll have those over to you. Officers are getting busier as we approach the warmer months, right? So we're expecting that. We're getting a few more calls, more traffic stops. So we're getting our money's worth now. Sergeant Brown has instructed a couple of firearm ranges. He does a great job with that, so we're very thankful for that. As well as Officer Perez has instructed a couple of defensive tactics trainings. If you remember, he went to the instructor course not too long ago, and he's already got a couple of trainings under his belt, and it's well received. As you mentioned earlier, he's just got a great demeanor, and people really respect him. So we're very appreciative of him. Over the last couple of months, I've instructed 2 SFST refreshers, which is standardized field sobriety test. Instructing officers have to go to that at the academy the first time, then they get refreshers every 3 years. I've done that at the county as well as one at SPD. I instructed an ARIDE course, which is Advanced Roadside and Impaired Driving Enforcement. We did that there's a regional training with ACA Sheriff's Office. I do that every year. We also had a green lab, which is very interesting. Clatsop County is the only one in the state that has done this. We've done this 2 times now annually, and it's basically bring in impaired people who are under the influence of cannabis, and we run through tests. It's all voluntary. It's just to train officers. It's really fun. And so it's kind of groundbreaking in Oregon. So we're very happy to have that in our area. And so I participated in that as well. And there were officers from all over the state. And then last week I was at Sun River teaching direct recognition expert school. I'm done for teaching now, so hopefully we try to get all that stuff done before the summertime, so everybody's well trained up and ready to go. I also attended the DUII conference in Bend, and I attended the Oregon Association of Chiefs of Police conference in Pendleton. So I've been busy, that's why we haven't got the stats, but they're flowing in now. That's all I got.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I add something to that real quick?
All right.
In working with Councilor Polina also, the team is working on taking the stats that the fire department, police department, and some other stats around town. We're going to start collecting those and adding them all up so that we can give you a picture of really what's going on within the community. Additional fire calls, additional police calls. We're going to talk about tree permits. And water usage and some other things
Over time.
over time.
rather
So
than
that
think.
you have more of a picture of what's really happening. So thank you, Polina, for that suggestion. Christie's working on that document now, and then we're just waiting for stats to kind of come in as they do, and we'll start updating that document. I think that'll be.
Okay. Great. All right. I don't see a fire chief here, so are we going to just move on?
Yeah, Chief Como is at the Chiefs Conference, and then Chief Andy is actually teaching an airway class right now that she had.
We all have the report from the chief. Was on the table. Moving on, master of money, talk to us.
Noteworthy in revenues is in the general fund, 10,034 was our marijuana tax, which was for the city's local quarterly tax that we imposed, as well as the city's portion of the state revenue share for the Oregon marijuana tax. It came in where we expected. One of our local shops does not do as well as the other one, and it was a little bit lower, but it pretty much is targeting where I thought it would be. In water fund resources, 30,040 other, which was for the sale of discarded city scrap metal. So our public works took a load up to a company in Portland of dismantled meteor parts and other pieces and scrapped that and made actually not a bad amount of money, and we put that into the water fund. Noteworthy in expenditures, in water fund, 3061, system operations and repairs, which was for the removal and disposal of waste materials that are created during the process of treating water. On the sheet, it's listed as Roto-Rooter is the company that we use. In water fund, 3064 water purchase, which was Gearhart's annual water purchase to the city of Seaside. The city of Seaside provides water service to 4 properties within the boundaries of Gearhart city limits, and they only invoice us once a year for that meter usage. Those 4 meters. And in street fund 6081 equipment, which was for the purchase of a 0-turn riding lawnmower with a bagging attachment. This mower is larger than our current riding lawnmower, but more maneuverable than the tractor mower that we have. And one of its primary uses is going to assist with areas along the streets right away. It's a little bit bigger and heavier duty than our little John Deere. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Moving on,
Could I ask a quick question?
you may.
On the water purchase, am I reading it correctly? It's $444,000?
Correct, because we purchased water from Warrington during the summer months, so those have already happened.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
thought it was for the 40.
No, that's like
$3,000.
Okay.
But if you were comparing last month's to this month's, it would look like it had gone up $3,000 or $4,000. And you might just wonder, well, are we starting to buy water from Warrenton? But it's from the city of Seaside.
Thank you.
Okay. City attorney.
Yeah, so I would love to partner with the League of Oregon Cities on the population issue. Virtually every city that I've brought this issue to their attention that they've looked at it has found major errors. One of them found out that Portland State had not counted any of their multifamily units that have been built since 2020, and they had a substantial number of those. So it's something that it's so technical that people sometimes have trouble getting their heads around it. Once they understand that they're not getting their shared amounts of state funds, that's something they can get. Because that's where it impacts our housing numbers, it impacts our buildable inventory, and then it also impacts all that, like gas tax, liquor tax, cannabis tax, all of those numbers, and grants that we can be able to receive. So to me, it's a huge issue, and it's going to take a legislative action. I mean, I've pointed out to Portland State all these errors. I expected them to be responsive. They really haven't been. And I just see the same things happening over and over again. So not just Gearhart, but a lot of cities in Oregon will benefit from changing that methodology. There are a bunch of bills this session on housing that are what people would term a placeholder bill. So like the title of the bill at the legislature is broad enough that it could go in 20 different directions. And that the legislators then will do what's called a last minute gun stuff, where they'll take another bill and put it into the placeholder bill. So it makes it really challenging if I'm kind of reviewing the bills that are coming down and trying to determine what impact they'll have on cities I represent, which I do. And sometimes that's part of the reason that that they'll only apply to cities of 5,000 or more, 10,000 or more, because small cities just don't have the staff capabilities to do what some of these things do. So that's become a lot more challenging just because you don't see these bills coming, and I don't have the capacity to check the bills on a daily basis to see what amendments have been happening or to drop everything and go to the Senate. So as long as we're talking to the league, maybe the league could explain that if we want good legislation, we need to have it in advance, and we need to be able to understand how it will apply to different people. As far as the FEMA stuff that was in Garrett's report, that work is due to an Oregon specific lawsuit, and there has been some criticism of the program because it measures from the top of the embankment of the river, and that could be true if the river's in a canyon or if it's, you know, at ground level. So and some cities are ending up with some results that are probably not best practices. I have also heard though that Cliff Vance has had a meeting with FEMA, and that FEMA may be dropping this program, which is really interesting because it was a court-ordered program. But so it's possible that all of Garrett and my work will have been for naught. So we'll see. But that's something that happened in the last couple of weeks. And then I'll be staffing the planning commission tomorrow, and we've got a couple of things on the agenda. So and then I guess the last thing is the Oregon Association of Municipal Recorders, so the city recorders asked me to present at their annual conference, which is in September. So if you want to learn about elections law, I don't know if it's open to the public, but I'll be doing it 2 hour. They gave me 2 hours instead of 1. So I'm expanding my usual presentation.
You interpreted dance.
Might excited for that.
So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions for Peter?
I'm just curious, so back to the Portland State thing. Is there, I mean, would it be up to the legislature to remove that responsibility from Portland State, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so traditionally, this money was allocated per the census estimates. And I think it was in 2014 that they passed the changes that all funding. I mean, all the share funding is based off of Portland State's population numbers. And we're using Portland State's population numbers as the default for everything other than like congressional districts. So, yeah, it would actually take a legislative change to use numbers other than theirs. And what I have suggested was to look at the growth rate for the past either 10 or 20-year periods. And that should be, whether it's the last 10 or blended, that should be the assumed growth going forward. And the numbers should be, in my mind, those should be the default numbers unless there's some major event. So like Warrenton obviously has a giant housing project going in. So that's something that they could then say, we had the number of this, but look at these permits, we're far exceeding or if there was some natural disaster like a forest fire that, Detroit Lakes population is what they were. So that could be taken into account as well. But yeah, the current system is really inaccurate, particularly for small cities and fast growing cities. And so that's why those are the cities that are small enough that they see all the growth that are able to say these numbers aren't right. And to the mid-sized cities, they just don't. Whether you grew by 7% or 5.2 is not going to be obvious if your city has 50,000 people.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you very much, Peter. Chad, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So just on your desk, I put a couple of things in here, but the one most recently was this urgent testimony for House Bill 3962-2, which is the state of Oregon considering changing the use of transient lodging tax funding. This is where currently the law allows cities to take transient lodging tax in, but 70% of it must be used for projects having to do with tourism, 30% for general fund activities. And League of Oregon Cities and other cities are moving on House Bill 3962 to give more flexibility in that spending. Cities are having a hard time with infrastructure, emergency services, especially police and fire, especially as they pertain to the influx of tourism in the summertime. So there is an opportunity for written testimony to be given to this. There's a link on this. And I believe the written testimony has to be received by this Saturday. Let's see.
Saturday at 3.
Yes. So on behalf of the city staff and our budget, I'll be submitting some testimony on there. But if you do have time as counselors, there is, I'll forward this email to you so you have the links. There are some letters that you can use and sign also, but it would be great for the state board to hear from our electeds. As during the last meeting, I said that I would give you a bit of a tree ordinance performance report, which you have on your desk. This is just a simple report, and I'll go over it a little bit now. The overview is since the adoption of the updated tree ordinance, the city has steadily improved implementation through community outreach, application refinement, or clarification efforts. The initial phase involved a learning curve for both staff and residents, particularly in understanding permit requirements and enforcing a 55-inch diameter threshold. Early outreach was also focused on arborists and tree professionals in the area, which helped reduce unintentional violations. Only a few Portland area companies and actually one other local company that's not in Gearhart were unaware of the ordinance, but no violations really occurred other than they didn't have a permit when they were starting to work. But through some complaints, we caught that and then brought them up to speed without too many issues. We're currently going to be updating the application to simplify the process for homeowners. The work session was also held to clarify the 55-inch rule, with approximately 6 hours spent in preparation and participation. At this time, no charge changes to the ordinance are being recommended. We will continue to monitor its impact, especially as part-time residents return during the late spring and summer. You can imagine it's probably going to get a little bit busier. There's a basic description here, the permit activity summary, the permits that we've done, approximately 10 permits, and I think we've got 2 waiting in the wings as well. Of the 10 permits, we're looking at about 12 trees that have come down through these permits, with 2 of them over 55 inches. Those are the numbers that we have so far. Some of the, most of these are approved because they're minor permits with trees that were under 55 inches. A couple of them had a mixed outcome because the trees were a little bit larger, or 55 and larger, maybe with 1 or 2 trees that they are able to cut down. And we do have a meeting with the planning commission on a major tree permit where somebody is requesting to cut down 2 trees that are over 55 inches off of their property. And the planning commission will be hearing that tomorrow. Other activities is, approximately 10 site visits without permits conducting to assess tree conditions. We have city planner assistance, city attorney assistance, work sessions on ordinance clarification, weekend call outs, and an upcoming planning commission meeting tomorrow. So the cumulative staff time for the summary of the cumulative staff time is approximately, since the beginning of this, about 31 hours and 20 minutes, maybe a little bit more with some of the other conversations that I just didn't write down. Our conclusion so far is that permit activity has slowed from the initial rollout, but staff remain engaged and prepared. Outreach and consistent application of the ordinance have helped reduce confusion and non-compliance. No changes to the ordinance are recommended at this time, though it continues to be monitored for effectiveness, and a major tree permit request, as I've already said, will be reviewed at the planning commission on Thursday, May 8th for 2 large trees over 55 inches. So that's a basic report for you folks, just to get a handle on what is going on with that. Any questions?
Do you feel like you know more about what's going on in town with regard to trees?
I get phone calls. I get a lot of phone calls. Yeah. And a few of those are over the weekend. So we've got going on. Do I feel like yeah, I do. I haven't had any reports in the last 2 weeks of any illegal tree cutting, well, except for one out on the dunes, but we weren't able to verify it. Somebody was out there cutting limbs, and maybe a few small trees with a handsaw, but we weren't able to find that person or really follow up. But yeah, it gives us a handle on kind of what's going on, and this will be one of the items that we'll continue to report on to keep you updated. Any other questions about trees? Water right application. The water right application, last week was returned to us again. There were 2 pieces of missing information that we were unaware we needed. One was the way the map was labeled, so we quickly fixed that. The other was a number that they didn't understand, so our water modeler clarified the number, and we sent that back last Friday. So they have received it, and to date, we have not gotten it back. So fingers crossed, we've got all the information that we need. WRD is being very particular about the information, which I understand, because this will be a situation that's probably going to be looked at by many different people. So I think we have finally got it. I have been working quite a bit with a culvert and some flooding issue that's involving Bud's Campground and Grocery. There is a culvert that was installed before this area was in the city of Gearhart. It was unknown to the city of Gearhart or the county or ODOT, and it has failed, and it's going to create some potential flooding. Already has created a little bit of flooding at the Buds Campground. So we're working on this situation, getting a lot of different state entities involved to see if there's maybe some grant money for a fix. And working with the community that's affected, those businesses, including the Chinese food restaurant, U-Haul, the liquor store area, and a homeowner up on the hill on Gearhart Loop to try to figure out some ways that we can assist them. I'll have more to report on that as we learn more. Also, Representative Javadi is involved. He's wanting to be kept up on that situation, and we are asking for his help to coordinate all the state agencies that will need to be working with, and potential for some grant money to help with this as well. So that's what I have to report on that. If there's any questions.
I have a question for Peter about that flooding. By inserting ourselves into this private affair between homeowners and business owners, is that gonna open the city up for any kind of libel issue or lawsuit?
This is something that I talked to our insurer about from when we became aware of the issue. So when we first became aware of the issue, we did not know whose pipe it was. And there was a sinkhole. And so we did some mitigation in order to prevent that from getting worse. At the same time that we did that mitigation, we then looked into what is this pipe? How was it permitted? Who owns it? And what we learned is it doesn't, if it went through planning and permitting at the county, and it would have, because that area wasn't annexed into the city until 2002, and that pipe's from likely the 50s or the 60s. It didn't, the county doesn't have any record of the pipe, of permitting it, or of ownership. The rule with surface water in Oregon is that surface water is the responsibility of the property owner whose property it is on when it is on the property. Cities have unless the city created the harm. So the two areas where cities have lost was one, the city of Lake Oswego, the pipes weren't large enough, and so during major rain events, the pipe acted like it's a water cannon, and the property owner made the city aware. They went out, they're like, oh, well, that's a real problem. Didn't do anything for 6 months. And then like the people lost their deck and doghouse. So the city was aware and failed to do anything. And then the other one was when the people lost all beneficial use of their land because the state built kind of a structure that sent all the water onto their land. So those are the two cases where cities have been liable. In this case, we didn't create the harm. We didn't own the pipe. The pipe benefits the private properties. It's on private properties almost exclusively. I think it crosses one of our streets once. So in looking at it, our insurer determined that at one point we were in litigation and I had to intervene in the litigation. But that we had, our insurer will not participate in anything financially because we're not in any way responsible for any of it. So, Chad and I co-wrote provided the information to the state rep here, Javadi, explaining all this. I think unless the state agency gets involved, we're likely going to need to be the convener. But as far as participating financially, we don't have any money. Based on the depth of this pipe, it's not going to be a cheap fix. It's going to be like $700,000 to $1 million. And I mean, we can jerry rig something in the short term, but this is in the long term, the property owners are gonna need to get together. I said we could form a local improvement district, which would allow them to get Bancroft bonding for it and pay it off over a 10-year period. We can't impose that on them. They have to come to us, and 50% of the property owners would need to ask us to form this for them. So there are ways we can be helpful, but we're pretty limited as far as liability. I mean, as you guys know, anyone can sue us for anything. But I'm not terribly concerned. And I think that if we hadn't done that initial mitigation work when we didn't understand whose pipe it was and the pipe had failed at that point and we hadn't acted, at that point, I would have been really worried about our liability. But fortunately, we didn't own the pipe, we didn't permit the pipe, we had nothing to do with the pipe. And so I think we've done everything to be a good neighbor and to be a responsible government. And I don't think we've done anything that opens us up to any sort of liability.
Thank you.
Question,
Yeah.
if the property goes into foreclosure, how will that affect the situation?
So that's something we've discussed, and that's really challenging because getting a bank to do anything is much more difficult. And it just really depends on the bank, what they're wanting to do. Again, I've spent, back when we were involved in the litigation, Chad and I are spending a lot of time on this issue, and then I spent a lot of time just like, because we do not want to establish the precedent of taking failing infrastructure that is privately owned, because then how would we say no to anyone that has like, some sort of utility easement on their property, whether it's in ground or not. So what can we do that doesn't trigger liability? I think the best idea I can come up with is the local improvement district, which would, depending on how many people pay into it, you can stretch it out over 10 years with low interest. And there might be the possibility of ODOT participating as well, because it could become a problem for them if it's not dealt with. But yeah, right now, nobody wants to step up and say, let's rally the troops and let's figure out a solution. And we need to, hopefully Representative Giovanni can be that person to kind of lead it.
Any other questions? All right, is that it?
No, just a few more things. Save the dates, budget meeting, Tuesday, May 13th, 6 p.m. Another big one, public safety building community meeting number 4, Monday, May 19th, 6 to 7:30. The architects will be making a presentation on how we got to where we're at, the process that we used. They're going to start talking about the funds that will be required, the cost of the building, both in indirect and direct costs. We'll be doing some activities with people that attend this meeting to help us through it. They'll be able to review those documents, review the plans, and review those costs. We're going to open it up for questions, but this will be the time to where the city learns what the new public safety building will cost. We're still working on some of the features of that. We're digging around, getting some information from Pacific Power. We're getting some information on what a radio tower installation or the antennas would cost, and some other basic items. We're also looking at the fact that this is going to be a building built away from the metro area with a larger firm, so there's probably a cost increase in that. We're looking at the time of construction so that we can make sure that we put our pricing together accurately, and Klosh Group is also going to be helping with that. So it's going to be a very interesting community meeting. We're going to be getting advertising for that, and I would encourage everybody here to attend and bring a few friends.
Chad, if I can interject, I think I forgot to tell you that during our small cities meeting, we sat next to a counselor from Manzanita who made the announcement that their city hall that they've been working on with the Klosh Group, they're due to get the keys next month, and they're on time and on budget. They're very happy. So.
With the Klosh Group, yeah, excellent, thank you. Another big event is the Gearhart Firefighters Ball, Saturday, May 24th, 8 p.m. at the Gearhart Volunteer Fire Department. The regular party will be happening as it always has. We'll have some refreshments for the adults. This is an adult-only party, of course. We'll have the band that we've had over the last 5 or 6 years attending, which has always been great and has elicited some pretty great dancing. We'll have our gambling tables for blackjack. We're still looking for a few dealers for blackjack. And some of you have been stalwarts over the years, looking at you, Mayor. Thank you very much. And just come in, buy a t-shirt, sweatshirt, lose some money at the tables, and then the fire department will use those funds to buy some of the equipment that they use for rescues and response. We also have a pending May council work session to be determined Tuesday, May 27th, 6:30 p.m. And just a real quick report on the Gearhart cleanup day. It was very successful. This year, they actually had the garbage bins out a day early, which we have found that is a mistake because they were pretty full when we came in the morning with some nighttime dumpers. But Gearhart's a little cleaner for it. We're not sure. I don't think we've received our invoice yet. But the college has always been very kind to us in assisting us with that. So we've learned some lessons. We'll make some changes for next year if council chooses to move forward with it. And that's my report for today.
Thank you. All right, moving on, we're gonna go to visitors. We're gonna listen to Mark McFadden in the Public Works Projects Update.
Well, first of all, I was told there was some concern about the asphalt paving down there at the culvert. You guys had some questions or concerns about that at the last meeting?
Yeah, Mark, Councilor Sharon had brought up some concerns.
Yeah, what are those?
There's two holes, there's a crack completely across the road and there's two holes
Okay,
in those cracks. Each is about, I don't know, maybe like that at this point.
okay.
And when it rains, those are filling up with water, and so
Yeah.
I was just curious as to whether that's undermining.
No, I don't see any major concern with it. It's just kind of wear and tear, you know, over the last 5 years or so, we've had so much heavy equipment coming into town and it's taken a toll on Pacific Way. It really has. I'm pretty sure those holes are filled now. My guys were doing some patchwork all over town here the last couple of weeks, so I don't think the holes are there anymore. But with those ruts, the water will sit in there, especially during the winter, it freezes and it'll pop some of that asphalt out. I mean, I don't know if I'll put it on the list this year, but I usually go around and try to find certain areas to do overlays and stuff every year with the money that we have and try to go from there. So, but I don't think it's a huge concern, so. But those holes, I'm pretty sure filled.
So your guys actually do the hole filling?
Correct, yeah, we use a cold patch material that works really well. We'll go around and try to stop the bleeding on a lot of spots around town every year at this time when the weather starts to get better, so.
We'll continue to monitor it, just to
Yeah.
make sure that there's nothing with that, and then potentially consider an overlay in the future as well, with some new
And
asphalt.
maybe just some crack seal, it depends, I can talk to a couple pavers and see what they recommend. Go from there, when I can get a chance to talk to them. So, any more questions on that, or are we good, or, okay. Moving forward, the last few months, we've really been working hard on getting that chlorinator system up and running, with brand new tank system. We did all the work ourselves, minus the electrical, just because there's warranty issues if we do the electrical stuff ourselves. We do have it up and running now. It took us 2-3 months. It was a lot of work, but the tank's in, chlorinator's working like it should, and everything's running properly to this day. In the meantime, while we had that down, we were having to mix our own chlorine in a separate tank, which was kind of a pain, but we made it all work and got it done. So we're pretty happy with the way that system is up and running now. So with no issues so far. We also went through and replaced our compressors in the water plant. These special air compressors, they run all of our actuators and valves to the tune of about 30 or 40 valves that these things operate. They're special compressors with a dryer system in it, so there's no water, oil, or anything going into these valves. So we got those up and running. We replaced the pressure reducing valve with the city of Warrenton, which allows us to, when we buy water from them in the summer, we can adjust that valve so we don't overpressurize our system because their reservoir is a little higher than ours, so without that pressure reducing valve, it can overflow our reservoir because they have more pressure than we do. So that was installed, we'll just finish that today. This is our every 3 years, so we're doing a lot of water sampling. So if you know how to look up stuff on the state website, we'll be doing probably 50 to 60 different samples that we have to do to make sure our system is safe. With all the sampling, it's like on an every 3-year cycle, which also the city water department was put on the outstanding performance list with state drinking water, which is a list for all the water systems that are doing what they're supposed to do with no deficiencies and no problems. So we got added to that list here this year too. So
What was that list?
the outstanding performance list, when you go on there, there's a list of all the cities that are part of that stuff.
Good job.
What else did we do? We upgraded the security at the water plant as far as all the internet stuff. I try to keep up on that every few years, just so nobody can get into there and do any damage to our systems. So that's kind of important. That's about it. Moving forward right now, my guys are spending a lot of time mowing and weed eating and doing all this stuff because the grass is growing like crazy. We start doing a lot of preventative maintenance stuff. We go around to every one of our valves to the tune of like 150 of them, dig them out, get them out, make sure they operate properly in case of an emergency. We do that with the fire hydrants as well, and it's just a lot of maintenance and kind of tedious stuff that really has to get done. In the last few weeks, our water production is really amped up because you drive around in the morning, people are starting to turn on their sprinkler systems. I would like to add to that, there is a lot of people out there that I will drive here in the morning and it's pouring down rain and those sprinkler systems are running wide open, and we really need to work on some kind of conservation for just some, letting them know that those things are happening, because we don't have all the water in the world. So, but we are starting to amp up production. May and June is a huge month for us. Those machines run wide open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, and it takes a lot to keep them going. Anybody got any questions?
On the list here, it's got neotoxy culvert.
Neotoxic culvert, is that the one you were talking here, or is that the?
Are you talking the culvert where it crosses the road and the holes?
Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I was. Great.
Do you have plans to replace that culvert?
The culvert itself, no. It was put in before I got here, but I've been inside that thing, I don't see any problems with the culvert itself. It's just the paving, because when they put it in, that's basically an overlay patch, and it's, like I said, it's where that water sits, and it'll just eat out that road. The only thing I see is just maybe a 2-inch lift on it with an overlay at some point, just to cover those cracks, so.
I've also brought up my concern about the fence that goes along there that's falling apart. Any plans?
I didn't notice it falling apart. What section of it is it like? I'll have to take a better look at it, because I haven't noticed any kind of falling apart, so.
Maybe you could take some pictures and.
Where did you could walk there?
Yeah, I'll walk down and take a look at it. I wasn't aware of that, so I didn't pay attention to that part of it. If it's falling apart or breaking, we'll get it replaced, so.
Could I talk to you about that more?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one other question I have is the Pacific Way sidewalk is the Pacific Way sidewalk where it's coned off right now going to get repaired before July 4th?
I don't know. I talked to Ray Prom Construction Monday morning. He measured it and everything. He was gonna give me a bid on what it would take to replace that section, because we gotta rip that whole section out and replace like about 100 feet there. So, and he was gonna, I'm just waiting on a quote from him. So,
Yeah, okay.
I think my guys, we can probably handle the demolition of it, but he's done most of the sidewalks in town for me, and he always usually gives me the best price, so I'm just waiting back to hear from him, so.
So are we talking about the one that's in front of the real estate office between Cottage and this way?
It's a
No,
little
I'm not
further
talking
out,
about the manhole.
so.
The manhole is another one that needs it, but I'm talking about up on the south side of Pacific Way.
Yeah, and I forgot to ask him about the manhole, it was on my list, and so I'll get to him with that too, because that should be simple, that part there, but if it can't be fixed by then, we'll try to maybe take a few pieces out and pour something to where it's safer.
Right.
4th of July, just to kind of fix it, I hate to do that, because then if somebody still gets hurt on it, it's gonna be on us, so I hate to Band-Aid it, but we'll try to do the best we can, so.
Sure.
Is that the city's complete responsibility to redo that?
That part, I believe it is, yes, so.
Is it painted like where there's an uneven spot or where you're gonna step?
There's cones on it right now. I mean, it's right on the edge where the sections that broke off because they were demolition, that garage back there fell down, the roof fell in. So, construction company, they tried their best not to do anything there, but just the vibration, the sidewalks are in pretty bad shape in that section. So we're gonna do the best we can to try to fix that and get it done, so.
So would you consider, you know, because you've got the handicap ramps on both corners?
Yeah.
Okay, would you consider just making that whole thing a handicap ramp, so when the trucks do run over it, that they don't break it again?
I'll take a look at it. I mean, that thing's been broke since they put it in. I just don't think they compacted it enough when they did it, and they didn't, somebody drove over it like a week after it was, I mean, it's been like that since they did that intersection, that little part there, so, and it just continues to get a little bit worse. I mean, I can talk to the contractors and see what they recommend. It's so picky with those handicap accesses and stuff. I mean, they have to be perfect, or it's kind of hard sometimes integrating new stuff into old to try to make it work as far as the level and the slope and everything on it. It's almost impossible to make it right, so.
Anyone else? Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
Thanks for coming in, I appreciate that. Mark works, spends a lot of time in the water treatment facility, keeping that one up and running, and keeps his guys very busy. He's been with us for over 28 years, I think coming close to 30 now.
26 is in June. 26 years.
I think you might be short a couple of years there, because that's when I joined the fire department, you were here.
I was 99 and started.
Okay, all right, you guys. So, doing a good
Yeah,
job.
my hair is great.
10 more years.
I don't think we've got that in here.
5 more years.
We'll see.
All right, moving on. We're gonna go to the recology rate review. And are you Dan?
Chris. Yeah, you got a last minute switch on there, Mayor. Yeah.
Well, so what? That's the way it is in my life. All right, Chris, you're up.
You want me up for?
You can do it right there if you're comfortable.
I love that. Okay, well, thank you, Mayor Smith, and council, I appreciate the opportunity to get in front of you. The good news is we're not here for a rate increase. Thank you very much. Now, I do want to give you some updates. Katie Hardesty, our operations manager, is not here. Usually she would be presenting this with Dan. She's at the happiest place on earth with her family and her parents. She took them away to that place, so good for her.
Was that sand trap?
What's that?
Sand trap?
That's awesome. So we're fully staffed going into summer, which is, where we want to be, because things pick up quite a bit, as you all know, just with the ebb and flow of people coming into town. So that's great news, which means, less service interruptions, that type of thing, less phone calls. We're fully staffed in our call center, which is another great thing. We're also fully staffed at the site for open payments. A lot of others come and pay the bill at our site in Warrenton.
We have new equipment. Big pause because it's been so long, so hard to get a truck. We have 3 new trucks at the Warrenton site, which is great news. So 2 what we call front loads, the ones with big cool forks that take containers over the top. And then we have a residential side load with the automated arm that comes out the garage fill. Those are about $500,000 a piece. I've been waiting since I mean 4 years for these trucks. So that's good news. We're also starting to see the stuff that we ordered just this year is already on schedule to be in play. That'll have an impact on rates eventually, right? Because we're gonna add that in over a 10-year, 7-year period to depreciate those. But it's a long time coming. It is also a testament to our maintenance manager, Kurt Harriman, who has done a great job keeping our trucks that we do have on the road, which has been great. I think he went on one of these trucks. Yeah, I know.
But I was like,
That was Rita.
Yeah, Rita.
Well, they're all welcome to come back on one. It's quite fun. We won't make you dump any cans if you don't want to. Other news, Clatsop County is gonna enact or put together a recycling curbside program for all of Clatsop County residents. So that's from north of Astoria up 26. So they'll all get this program. Part of that will be through the RMA, Recycling Modernization Act, will fund that. So it's sort of delayed until we get the money from RMA, and they pay for the carts. And they may pay for a truck. So that will help your neighbors, if you will, right outside of your city limits that are county, start to get curbside recycling. That could have an impact on the depot. Another thing that could have an impact on the depot is we are closing the Seaside Recycling Depot. Some of you may have heard that, some of you may not. It doesn't mean that they won't have options. We've moved 4 cardboard containers over by the convention center and then by the Bureau of Visitors Bureau. We have a very large glass bin to replace the recycling that was in that depot. That depot was a nightmare for us in terms of contamination, the cost of keeping it up in terms of just a lot of it got dumped as trash because people just threw trash in it. There was other issues there as well. This has been an ongoing conversation with Seaside, but we're letting other cities know because some of the residents do use that. Also, their visitors use it maybe on the way out of town, so we're just trying to get the word out. We'll be interested to hear from you if you see some sort of impact from that as well. Let us know. We just did our artist in residence program. Some of you may be familiar with that, where we fund 2 artists in the area in the county, and that can be from any of the cities that we service as well, to a 3-month program where we give them $1,000 a month as a stipend, and in 3 or 4 months, they build some cool art, but it has to be made out of the trash out of the transfer station. And we have a show in Astoria, and then at the county fairgrounds for the Crowd Fest, we get them 2 spots, and they show back up with all the new stuff that they built. And we're starting to build 8 years worth of artists, so it's pretty cool stuff if you get a chance. We just started doing that in the last 2 years. So it's a great way for them to keep selling their product and being inventive with whatever they find, which can always be quite interesting.
So,
I can tell you a question.
so does their art on permanent display out at the fairgrounds?
No, so they get a booth during the Crowd and Wine Festival. And then we have an art show during the, I think it's like the first Thursday events in Astoria, where they have an art walk. We rent a place out once a year and allow them to do an art show. It's up for a week and a half or 2 weeks. And we can start letting you guys know because there's artists from all over the county. It's very competitive. It's amazing stuff, so.
That'd be a good place to display with them, be down at Cannon Beach.
Yeah. Let's see. You're the only city that I manage in all of Oregon, that's a lot of them, that is not getting price increase. Everybody else is around 2.1. Good question. You want to know why? I appreciate that, Mayor Smith. That if you recall, we put a fairly large increase on the side yard services. That was a smaller one. We didn't see a lot of people move away from it. We thought there'd be some attrition, that would level out. We just saw people keep that service, whether they wanted it or it was second home or vacation home. And so that had the opposite of what we talked about earlier, it was being somewhat subsidized by the residential, the other folks that didn't have that service. The impact there has been really no PI for, so. It worked, I think, as we planned it, or we thought it would work, so that's a big news. So we appreciate that. Let's see, I think that's all I have. So if you have questions for me, let me know. And it's really nice to come here and tell you that we're not increasing rates.
Oh, yeah, we're excited for that too. Can I ask you a question about, moving the recycling of the glass and whatnot? How does that affect like our little, stop and go market and, Dollar General as far as, is that gonna interfere or change anything about how many bottles and things that they have to accept for recycling?
You mean like in the redemption program?
Mm-hmm.
No, it shouldn't. I mean, what we see there is wine bottles. As soon as the bottle bill wants to include wine bottles, then yeah, you probably see a difference there, but we're not seeing, this is just straight glass. It's not.
Right, but I mean, how, I'm ignorant on this, so I was under the impression that if they were in such a distance from the redemption center, then it limited the number of bottles that they had.
Oh, this isn't related to that
Okay,
at all. Yeah, no, that's the bottle bill, that's the whole state.
okay.
This is just local, let's say. It gets a lot of traffic, and so I don't know if there's folks, in Gearhart that use it or your visitors that it's on the way out. You just may hear about it, that's why I'm cheating.
Do you have any plans to put anything down at the airport?
We talked about that, with Seaside, right? Is that what you're asking?
Well, we received a letter from a concerned citizen about it,
At the airport?
about believing that you were intending to put something at the
There
airport.
was some conversation about that, they've since determined to go to the bureau, the visitor bureau instead. There's one container there, it's like a 6-yard monster container, so should be able to accommodate all the volumes.
I think that's a smart move, put it in there at the visitor center, because, I mean, there's plenty of people that actually pay attention to that.
Right.
Whereas
Yeah.
down on Avenue S there, nobody wants to go down there.
Yeah, I mean, the fences were broken and cut, and there's just, would have been more money to staff it, to put cameras, and the city has been pretty agreeable. We even thought about putting it there, Public Works, they were all for it, and then I think they realized that they kept on traffic, maybe not. So the convention center has a lot of space, and we're gonna keep the containers in good shape, keep them looking good. Some signage will be put up. There's other constraints just for businesses in Seaside where they don't have spots for containers. They're gonna use that as well.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's great to see all of you again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks for knowing Chris, and
I was gonna tell you, Nick Olheiser, our AGM, you can see him up there, is also listening and watching too, so.
great.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna go eat if that's okay.
Hey, yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
All right. So we're gonna move. Public communications, anyone wishing to address the city council concerning items of interest not on the agenda may do so at this time. All remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Requests to comment electronically must be submitted by email to the city recorder at info@cityofgearhart.com no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting. In-person attendees wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to the meeting. Nobody signed in. We're not having any talk. So we'll go to the written comment acknowledgement. We have a letter of thanks from CASA, which is Court Appointed Special Advocates. We have the South Unity Food Bank letter. A letter about the relocation of the glass recycling by the airport, which I believe that's what this one was. We now know as null. And a letter about or 2 letters about the tree removal on 2nd Avenue. And that is private property and, up to the process that we have in place. There is no late written communication?
Uh,
Yes,
There was one,
there was.
I think that was Chad's that he distributed and talked about.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you could call it like correspondence if you want to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a wow.
Chad distributed and talked about it. It was the,
Transient lodging tax.
It was a lodging tax.
Right, it's the
Right.
call for. So we've done that. There's nothing else. We have no ordinances or resolutions. We have no old business. In new business, we have a request for a 3-minute comment section about the 4th of July celebration discussion we're gonna have. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to discuss that for 3 minutes? Seeing no raised hands, we'll move on to new business. Chad, will you read the synopsis and we'll move on from there?
I would, thank you, Mayor. So I've been working with the police chief, fire chief, and Mark McFadden, our public works director, in updating our preparation plan for the 4th of July. Last year was the first year where we kind of bumped up our response, our staffing, and we tried some new things such as signage and garbage collection, and many of those work. So once Josh got back, I'm sorry he didn't have this quite in advance, but we just finished talking about this plan yesterday. So I want to go over this to elicit just any questions that you might have. So what we're working on is first and foremost agency coordination for the 4th of July. Keep in mind that the 4th of July is on a Friday this year. Street dance will be on a Saturday. So we're expecting a little bit more in regards to the amount of people that are in town. In regards to agency coordination, trying to bring everybody together and have a communication plan. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but Gearhart Fire and Gearhart Police Department put together this thing called an incident action plan. Maybe this isn't an incident yet, but that's just the coverall for the type of plan that this is. And what this has in it is a lot of information about the laws, about fireworks, MIPs. It has a lot of communication information, including frequencies that the individual agencies are using. It has some information about where all of the emergency operations centers will be in operation, so we can coordinate communication and personnel. Talks about what we do is each city does one of these, and then we share these together and get that information all into one spot so that if there is an incident, these reference manuals will help the assisting agencies respond to our community and help our community respond more effectively. So we're updating that plan for this. This is pretty well 90% updated right now, and we've just got a few things to add in. Other things that we're working on in the agency coordination, we'll be having another meeting where we invite Clatsop County Sheriff's Office, Oregon State Parks, Gearhart Fire, Seaside Fire, Warrenton Fire also, they didn't get mentioned on here. As I said, Oregon Park and Recreation Department is very important to make sure that they're here as well. And not only is the agency coordination good for the event, but it's also good for communication so that these agencies understand what's really happening in the communities. We're going to hold a joint responder event, and we usually do that here in City Hall, and we bring all these agencies or a representative from them in, and that'll confirm what staffing they have, what their issues are, whether or not they're fully staffed or they're short of people. It just gives us a good understanding of mutual aid and other response planning. We'll talk about coordination protocols, emergency contact list will be shared among the agencies prior to the holiday. So that's yet to happen. We're going to wait till it gets a little bit closer, but that's our intention to hold that agency coordination meeting. As far as fire and police operations, they'll develop and implement the incident action plan we already talked about, which is almost done. Both departments plan to be fully staffed from the early morning through the end of the holiday events. Fire engines and police units will be staged at the front and rear of the parade route for safety coverage. The volunteer fire department will be staffed by our local volunteers throughout the holiday.
They work quite a few hours on that holiday, many of them putting in 12 and 16 hours over that weekend as volunteers to assist in the calls that we get. We're gonna be holding at the station a barbecue for all the responders, including those assisting the city of Gearhart. So the medic staff, if they've got a moment in their day to maybe rest a little bit, we try to get them to hang out at our fire department and feed them. Many of our volunteers are becoming quite good cooks. Last year, I do remember the pulled pork was amazing. State police, county police, and other fire departments, New York Parks and Recreation Department will be invited and encouraged to stop by the station for break, snacks, and their agents of communication. We'll be working on the street closures and traffic control. This is another feature last year. We learned a few lessons last year with our response. What the chief of police, Josh Gregory, noticed is that a lot of our important intersections, such as the 10th Street intersection, we're really stuck with cars on the side of the road, all the way up to the stop signs and the intersections, making clearing those intersections with traffic and pedestrians very dangerous. So we're looking at actually closing some odd feet on corners of the important intersections for safety. So we'll work up some signage and some plans for that, but that's a feature that's a little bit different than this year to last year. Another feature is we're going to be paying attention to the 10th Street beach access. That beach access is getting a lot of use. It's going to be very, even if I have it 30 minutes prior to the 4th of July event, it will become very soft and unmanageable for two-wheel vehicles in about 20 minutes, as soon as some cars drive on. So we're going to be monitoring that access this year. There is a potential that we may need to close it for a period of time if a lot of cars are getting stuck, because we can't get emergency services to and from the beach if something does happen. So we're going to be making up some additional signage and monitoring that situation. Talking to Mark McFadden about potentially building a gate similar to what they have at the Delray Beach approach. We don't want to close it. A lot of our locals do use it, but it is getting quite busy and dangerous. So we're going to look at maybe treating that a little bit differently this year.
Why couldn't local people just use Delray?
It just depends on the situation. That's what most of them are, but Delray is just as bad as well. So we have to manage access for people to get on and off the beach. So it's a moving situation. We're gonna learn a few things this year. We'll keep an eye on it. If we close our beach and just had Delray Beach be the one and only, that could create some issues, but that is a possibility and we're looking at it as.
You can use it for emergencies only.
Mhm.
Or if you've got a disabled person's permit.
True, but there are a lot of locals that do use that access as well, and they do rely on it. So we're gonna we're gonna monitor it and potentially close it occasionally as needed
I'm just talking about the Fourth.
to clear it out.
Does the state need to be on board if we decide to close it, or?
It'll be part of the communication in our plan. We'll make sure that people understand what's going on. And again, the most important thing is for emergency access. That's why we would be doing any of these movements. But we would coordinate the communication for it.
This whole thing is, that's a state park down there. Gearhart has nothing to do with that.
No.
As far as I'm concerned, you can close the beach approach off,
Mhm.
okay? You have your firefighting stuff over there. The biggest concern, and this goes back to when I was a child, the biggest concern are people shooting fireworks up into the dune grass, right? Everything else, there's no way in the world, unless you bring the National Guard down here, that you're ever gonna control that beach.
Correct. And last year, our biggest concern, thankfully, we didn't have any real fires, but it was a multiple medical calls that we had to get in and out of the 10th Street Beach approach to try to get people fixed. And we had a few MIPs and some parties that we broke up in advance and did some advanced work on there over the last couple of years. That has been very helpful as well. So,
This is like trying to control the college kids in Fort Lauderdale,
Well, at least they're not downtown.
okay? I mean, you put 2,000 people on that beach, there's gonna be drinking. There's gonna be altercations. I mean, that's just logic. This is what started the Seaside riots. Right?
Yeah, and I
This
think
is the state parks problem, okay? So the state police and the state parks and the highway department should be the ones that are stepping up, and they've never, ever done that. Okay? This is what led to people wanting to close the beach to driving.
And that's where I think this coordination has been helpful for us as well, because we are bringing them to the table. We are having them help understand what it is that our capabilities are, what we can and cannot do because of our staffing. And that's been fairly eye-opening to them. I think Counselor Dana and I met with State Parks, I think twice. Once at their station, once here, and then we coordinated with them afterwards. So we're working on that.
This goes back 40 years that we've been having a discussion with the state parks department and the state police and the county sheriff about having patrols on that beach there. Okay?
Mhm.
I mean, this was back when the Palisades first tried to close the beach. Right? And the fire department was really proactive in there. Right? And the parks department didn't do a damn thing. Right? And the state senator at that particular time just absolutely reamed everybody at the school down here, right? And once again, here we go. It's
We agree with you, and I think we made some inroads last year. And I think we're gonna continue that and to see how this develops, and that's why we're making these changes that we are, kind of increasing our diligence to protect our own community as well. So that's the main goal here, trying to get people involved and trying to get some understanding from those other agencies.
you might as well close 10th Street off right at Marion.
Can I say something about that? I have some concerns. I'm not completely against it, but I have some concerns about changing the traffic pattern. On the, essentially, this is the I-5. I mean, it's a state highway that comes down here, and the last place to get off is on 10th Street. And people are used to that, and the worst time for them to suddenly learn that that is no longer an option for them is when they've perhaps been drinking and celebrating, and there's a lot of people out there on the beach. So communication is gonna be key, and you have to remember, and I think Peter can probably speak to this better than I can, because I'm not an attorney, but if you create a situation that put people in more danger than they were in before, you buy the liability for that. So I would say, let's do that very carefully. And if somebody's gonna make that decision, I think it should be the state. It's not that I don't agree with it, but I think that as Preston said, this is a state problem. They've abdicated responsibility for them. We've done our due diligence and telling them over and over and over again that, hey, you charge us to protect our water tower down there, but you're very happy to just walk away from this Ozzy Osbourne concert that goes on our beach every 4th of July and leave us with the responsibility for it. We put them on notice. We just gotta be careful about, inserting ourselves so much into it that we make it appear that it is our risk, and it shouldn't be our risk. It's the state's risk if anything happens down there.
So I think we did learn a lot of lessons last year, and then on the 5th, Chad and I met up and we went onto the beach, and I can't even tell you how many phone calls on the 4th, from people reporting all sorts of things, and I'm trying to relay that to the city, but in my mind, the 2-wheel drive cars shouldn't be on the beach. I mean, Chad and I saw like kids that took a Mercedes S-Class, what are they, common sense, apparently not there, but I think absolutely if there was a gate or something to make sure that the cars are gonna be able to safely drive, I don't see that being any different than requiring chains or studded tires on Mount Hood during dangerous conditions. Having the amount of traffic we have on the beach, it just made it so unless you had a 4-wheel drive, you're gonna get stuck. And then the Jeep guys fortunately were towing people out. In my mind, doing permit parking only for that neighborhood surrounding 10th Street and doing some other so that the residents there can maybe get some permits for their friends or visitors, but we don't have high schoolers sleeping in cars. What I also noticed just walking from, the Palisades to downtown is if there were no parking spots, the kids weren't stopping. So a lot of the people that were coming, and we got word out to a bunch of metro area schools, but hindsight being 2020. We need to get word out to like the Tiger, Tualatin, Sherwood school districts as well, instead of like Lake Oswego Jesuit, Central Catholic. The schools of my youth that used to come down to Gearhart and the schools that are coming down here now are a little different, so. But I think that through, I think to Councilor Gould's point, yeah, we do need to be careful. We don't need to create a dangerous condition. In my mind, saying if you have a two-wheel car, you can't get on help prevent a dangerous condition because those cars can block first responders, et cetera. I think that if we have our state rep and our state senator advocating for state police, that will be really necessary. But I also after that holiday, there's so many people that expressed appreciation to me for our police chief and the professionalism and job that he had done for our fire department. The fact that they saw the city trying to take proactive steps. And, you know, I'm like, we're learning a lot of lessons. Hopefully we can get better every year. But I can't think of another issue where I've had so many people thank me, except the camping issue that we had a few blocks from here one year. There was a lot of appreciation on that too. But yeah, I think that if we proactively get out word, if the kids realize it's not going to be the Wild West, then they can get an MIP here. If the schools are telling them, if parents are aware that if their kid gets an MIP and we can't release them to their friends, parents' custody, that the parents are going to have to drive down and get them. I mean, all this stuff to encourage people to behave responsibly. I don't know if we can, I don't know that we're ever going to shut down fireworks. But
You're never gonna.
yeah, but creating conditions so that we can fight a fire in the event that, as you said, I mean, we need to proactively demonstrate that. So I think there are things that we can do to demonstrate we're being responsible to our residents and to the state and to any lawyers that might get called if there's a case. And we can continue having those conversations.
In order to do the permitting, does the council need to take action?
I think we want to get that on our June agenda. And we can do that by resolution, so we go into effect immediately, and we could just say from the 3rd until the 6th that we're going to have a permit parking system, and maybe we do. I don't know if there are other neighborhoods that will be interested in doing that as well. There might be. Maybe we could do different colors for different neighborhoods, just so that someone walking can see, oh yeah, they've got the green permit on their dash, they've got the number, and you know, it's not, I can't tell the difference between teenagers and people in their early 20s anymore. I'm getting that old, but it looked like kids, it looked like a bunch of little kids sleeping in cars. And they were probably passed out, and that's not what we need. So yeah, the more that we can regulate the behavior, in my mind, the better off we'll be. And again, a bunch of complaints that I got were folks that lived in that neighborhood and their guests that they'd invited down were having to park a mile away and walk. Because people that one person described as homeless teenagers from Tiger. And I was like, I don't think they're homeless. They don't have a home here. But anyway, yeah, so I think that we can do that. And then I think the two-wheel drive thing is absolutely legally more than defensible.
But how are you gonna monitor that? Because those kids aren't, no, I mean, he's gonna have his hands full. These kids, if they wanna get on the beach, they're gonna take the SL Mercedes-Benz down there. They don't care, okay? I say close off the approach at Marion Street and have one person monitor the people, the guests that are, for the people that are residents there. They can, the people that are residents down 10th Street on both sides, right? Can come into City Hall here and get a tag or, you know, a parking permit or whatever it is, and different colors for different streets, right?
Yeah.
All right, and then they can issue those to their friends
Mhm.
before they get down here. And then those people there get through the barricade on 10th Street.
We'll have a conversation and consider that, but that's gonna be a lot of work. I think another thing that we wanted to talk about was potentially doing some temporary police order, no parking. So that we can keep a lot of those areas free and open for no parking. The permitting process sounds great, but you know, we'll have to think about all the people that will take to advance.
I mean, that's gonna make his life a whole lot easier.
So 10th Street is your problem, right? It's our problem.
Yeah.
And I would be personally looking at it as a police officer, an advocate for closing off 10th Street from
Absolutely.
Marion and also the access point at the beach line. And I understand the liabilities. Being down there, seeing it, I think you have a greater liability by having it open because people are hard charging through that sand, and you've got intoxicated people walking across that sand barrier, trying to go from one side to the other. I saw several near misses last year, because they're not paying attention, they're hauling tail, trying to get through that soup, right? And then there's people walking, and you have a lot of near misses. The two-wheel drive idea absolutely would be good. Manning that would be a concern for me. The police department probably wouldn't have any interest in that because we're gonna be all hands on deck and we get calls. And as y'all know, it is a riot around there. There's a lot of people. We try to be proactive. Last year I took a different approach. Had at least 2 of our officers and surrounding agencies come down starting about 2-3 o'clock. And that's when those teenagers decide to come down there and drink into a mob. And so we would basically just approach it. They would run. We treat it like the Serengeti, and we're hungry tigers, or lions. We grab what we can for our meal. We've got a couple, the rest take off. We write their tickets, contact their families, do that, come back. In about an hour, they're still enough to come right back and convene in the same spots. And we did it again. I think that helped a lot with the intoxication issue. Moving to the second point, we were talking about the OSP issue. Lieutenant Hazenkamp, who is over the command in Astoria. He's so proactive. He's got a good mind for this stuff, and he's thoughtful. He's also a Gearhart resident. He is concerned about this. Last year, he gave me all the effort that he could. They got to keep in mind, they have Highway 101, 26 and 30 that are absolutely packed with crashes. They have that duty first and foremost. The other issue we have is Seaside. Seaside takes their resources. They have an MRT team, which is actually a major response team that's on bicycles. They get 16 of them, is what I understand this year, or something like that. Dedicated to Seaside, because Seaside is a mess. It's an absolute mess. So getting those resources from OSB can be challenging. I will say that Lieutenant Hazenkamp gives us everything he can. So
In another jurisdiction, I worked out a IGA between the fire and the police that gave the fire limited police powers, but the power to seize illegal fireworks. And also like low level traffic sort of things. And now that city there were people that were known to shoot off illegal fireworks every year. One in front of the fire chief's house, like right in front of his house, the neighbor. And so, you know, there are creative ways we can get, creative ways, but keep in mind, we need the firefighters for, you know, the public health stuff too. So I don't, if we had them manning a gate or verifying that the cars were 4-wheel drive versus 2-wheel drive, however it is, I'd be all for shutting that street down. And yeah, yeah, we can look at it.
You would have to put notification up north though, when people get on, that's where they need to know. Otherwise, they're gonna come all the way down here. And never underestimate what drunk people will do to solve problems. They will come
I
up
think
with
in regards
creative
to-
problem solving that you don't want them to.
I'm hearing from the council and the people in attendance that 10th Street is something that we would want to consider potentially closing. How about Chief Josh and myself and Mark have a conversation about what that looks like, talking to Oregon Park and Recreation as well. Let them know that that's the direction that we're heading, and then we can report back again at the next meeting about the 10th Street Beach Approach.
Thank you.
Don't we have some extra police cars that have lights and stuff like that? We could just
The only extra.
put them east and west there with their lights going on, so that people that were coming down from the north there, I mean, when they see spinning lights, blue lights and everything like that, they'll turn around and go back.
Two things, we only have the basically unmarked car now, which does have lights, it says Gearhart, and that's it on the side of it, that everyone's been using. We could post that there. One of my other concerns is once the fun begins, that thing's gonna get hit with fireworks and all kind of stuff, just like Ian was a few years back while he was driving. They'll tear it up. It will be damaged.
This has been going on since I was a kid.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, I've worked in Cannon Beach, I've worked in Seaside, now I work in Gearhart, all which have had, when I was in Cannon Beach, there was no firework law. So I've seen this on the beach for 16 years now. And there's nothing you're gonna do about the fireworks. And honestly, short of the Dune Grass fires, personally, that's where the safest place that they can be. I know you're gonna have things like that occur with land blowing up and things like that happens every year. I will say last year, I was very pleased that we didn't, I think we had one call for service for a firework call like inside the city. Which shocked me, but it showed that they were getting their fill out on the beach, and when they came into town, they were out. They just got rid of everything.
One of the 10th Street Beach Approach issues that we had last year is when it did close because so many people were stuck, especially at the beginning of the day. What had happened is we had an unprecedented amount of parking going on in Gearhart as well. It's something that we'll have to think about and how to handle that, because they'll be parking all throughout Gearhart and walking our trails knowing that they're not able to get down to the beach, and it depends on where Delray Beach is and how they're doing it. But we'll have that discussion and kind of suss it out and report more to you about that issue on this sheet.
Are you done with your reporting?
Not quite, sir. I've got a few more things, so I'll make it quick.
Okay.
Sound good? So street blocking plans we'll be talking about, no parking zones, we're gonna be talking about, public works, event gate. Parade route signs did not get out in time or effectively last year with parking, so we'll make sure we get the no parking signs out for the parade route, so we can keep the parade relatively clear. It won't be perfect, it'll be good. Parade and street dance, we divided that up and we're gonna be working that. The parade route itself will remain unchanged. Street dance is scheduled for the day after the 4th, requiring some extra staffing to set up and tear down. Street blocking and parking restrictions will begin at 5 p.m. In the evening of the dance. Police, fire, and public works personnel will provide staffing and support during that event as well. Signage and public messaging. Illegal fireworks signs will be posted approximately 2 weeks before the 4th of July. Inventory signs are on the way. There will be post-event expense associated with removing that, but no big deal. Fire safety garbage banners along the yard side. I have not heard from anybody who is interested in doing the beach cleanup the day after. We are also considering bringing back the large debris bin with Recology on the 10th Street Beach Approach to have an effort of staying clean and getting clean. I will do some blog post updates a couple of weeks prior to make sure people understand what's going on. For fireworks enforcement, again, the activity in town was significantly improved last year compared to previous years. Fully staffed police department played a key role in that. We anticipate beach-related fireworks will remain a concern. We will work with external agencies. Environmental and community outreach, letter campaign will be conducted to the metro area schools again. Thank you, Peter, for your assistance with that. I encourage students to respect Gearhart's natural beach habitats and the environment all the way around. Additional garbage cans have been ordered. We're going to keep those around town again, placed around. There is an expense to that. Waiting to hear beach cleanup volunteers. I already mentioned it. Garbage dumpster, we talked about that. Strip team will be invited to assist during this holiday weekend. We didn't utilize them very well this last time, but I think I'd like to make an offer to them to see if they're available. Volunteer coordination efforts are ongoing.
especially after the post-holiday beach cleanup, looking for some volunteers to take that on. And then down after that is just some of the budgetary and staffing considerations. This will be a heavy day for our new year budget on overtime. And the expenses that come along with it. All hands on deck operation. And these are just some of the additional costs that we're going to be working through. Does that elicit any questions that we have or other concerns?
Just know that we'll be coordinated at beach cleanups. Probably very similar to what's happened in the past with people going out soon.
You also have people at trailheads, buckets of bags, things like that. So you're handing bags out to people as they were going onto the beach. We'll have to consider that again and
Yeah.
get some volunteers for that. So as a reminder.
Maybe I'll be able to give you a report on that next June or by our June meeting.
Okay. And Chiefs and I will work on the 10th Street Beach Approach idea and give you some more information as we get it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. You had something you would like to say?
Mayor, good evening. I am field staff for Representative Chavez, and I would suggest, relative to the 4th of July, contact our office and ask him if he could touch base with, Parks and Recreation or, go to, OSP, anything that, you think that you might be able to helpful with from that direction, as you get closer to the 4th of July.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So, Dana, there's this synopsis of that you wanted to talk about 4th of July, is that?
That's,
taken
yeah,
care of?
we've done it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, council concerns. Preston,
I have no concern.
Paulina,
I have nothing, no.
Sharon,
I have nothing.
Dana,
Sure.
no thanks. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll give you a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Adjourn. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming out.
Chief.